All right, so I have the assets built for this camera move. In a storyboard, a camera pan like this, a camera move looks like this, in case you want to build these into your storyboards, especially for those of you interested in motion work. A good storyboard artist can make around $1,000 an hour, so it's not a bad job because it does so much of the creative job of movie making. So that would be the camera move. And we've built that up with our layers. So we're starting with this frame, and then we're panning it down and ending on this frame. And then that's where our action starts. Okay, now let's get into building the changes to the background assets as they happen in the scene. So to do that, I'm going to take my final frame, this one right here, and I'm going to move it on top of everything. Well, actually, before I do that, let me make a duplicate of it. I'm going to take that copy and move it on top of everything so I can see it clearly. And then I'm going to just do some simple darkening of the clouds by using some of the tools we've learned, like levels and maybe limiting the lights so it starts to darken a little bit. Not much. And then I make a duplicate of that, Command J. It's a lot easier when we don't need to move the frame anymore. Go to levels again. Limit those even a little bit more. Maybe start to darken the midtones a little bit. Right. Command J, darken them even some more. Deepen those midtones, limit those lights. Okay, so this looks like kind of stormy weather. And that happens slowly, over a progression of a few frames. So there. And what I love about frames in place is I can always use opacity in my animation and overlay them. So for instance, I could do lots of different steps just by playing with the opacity if I want additional frames in between these two. Okay, now that's enough to actually allow me to make the stage. So how do I make the stage? Because these are just my assets. I'm going to create a new file, but first I'm going to take my very first frame, what's my first keyframe, which I use my storyboard sketch to inform. So it's this, and it's an empty background frame to establish the background. And I have that isolated on this layer. I'm going to select around it by selecting inverse. And then I'm going to copy it. So Command C, or Edit Copy. Then I'm going to open a new Photoshop file. And I'm going to call this Carl Assignment 5 Stage. And this is where I'm going to put all my assets together. And I'm starting with my background assets. By copying first, before I started a new file, it automatically matches the proportions of what I copied. And then I paste it in with Command V or go to Edit Paste. Okay, so that's my first frame. So layer 1, think of that as frame 1. Now I need to put my next frame in. So I go to my assets. I don't need to select it this time because they're all on different layers. And I don't even need to turn off layers, but I can kind of show you as I go. So I've just done that one. I'll turn that one off. Now I'm going to take this next layer, and I'm simply going to Command A to select it all, Command C to copy it, Command V to paste it in. and it will automatically lock it to my new file proportions. So these are my first 2 frames. You see how we start to get a camera move there. Next, copy the next layer, paste it in. Copy the next layer. I'll turn them off as I go. Paste it in. But you can do this pretty fast because there's no reason to turn them off. That's just to make it more visually clear what I'm doing. Copy, paste. So let's see how that camera move is looking. Starts here, goes to there, goes to there, goes to there, goes to there. It's very handy-cam look. Kind of, it's not super even progressions. If I wanted really even, like dolly crane panning, I would use the same number of arrow strikes each time in order to move it a consistent amount each frame. But again, this is all GIF animation, kind of herky-jerky. Okay, did that one, now do this one. Copy it, paste it over. So all that prep work has really helped out. Makes this go pretty fast. Copy it, paste it over. Copy it, paste it over. And last one, copy it, paste it over. Now, because this scene stays the same, again, look at my sketch. We've now completed that move. Now we're in this scene until probably the end where I'll pan back out. I'll reverse those frames. So now I can actually take all 3 of these layers, my darkening assets, and instead of copying and pasting each of them, I can deselect, and I can just select those layers, and I can swoop my assets out. This is where I'm going to build all my assets for the background. And then just select those layers and drag them here. Use the move tool. I'm moving all 3 layers at once and drop them in. Now the benefit of copying and pasting is you won't have any accidental placements. They'll always match the full frame. Whereas this, it's possible for me to not have it line up exactly. But when it's the full background, and that's why I start with the background, it works pretty well. All right, so let's test this animation. This is how we animate in Photoshop. You go to Window, you turn on your animation tools, which are under Timeline, and we're going to create a frame-by-frame animation. So we click there, and this is just the most basic kind of GIF animation tools. It works for several versions back of Photoshop as well, though there are some new kind of 3D animation things in this newest version that if you get really into it, you can look into later. Then we're going to click on the animation or the timeline options, which are in the top right corner of the window. And then we're going to say make frames from layers. Now this is the frame by frame view. You can use these arrow keys to go through it. And actually those do look maybe a little bit off. You see how there's a little bit of white showing there? So that's the only problem. So what I'm going to do is erase all of these, select them all, drag them to the trash. And I'm going to take those last 3 frames, which are all selected, and I'm just going to use the move tool and use the arrow key and push them. A little bit. I wonder why. It looks like there's white on that edge. Yeah, there isn't. So maybe that's just a glitch in how the animation is previewing. So let's try that again. To review, doesn't matter what layers you have selected. Doesn't even matter if they're turned on. You click here and you say make frames from layers. And because I have an empty background frame, which I like, I'm going to need to delete that frame. But never use the delete key, otherwise that will actually delete your layer. This is just how you're programming the frames. Okay, and I'm keeping it all at full resolution so far. So whatever the resolution was of my landscape, that's what I'm keeping. Now I can set the timing for each frame. So I'm going to have the first one selected, hold down Shift, select the last one, and then set a timing. And my default timing is 0.3. That's just kind of how I animate GIFs. And then I can refine it a little bit later. And then I'm going to say how many times do I want it to play through, and I want it to loop so I can spot problems and say forever. Okay, and then I play. And there it goes. It animates and then it darkens. And I see that little white line and I'm not quite sure why, but just let it go. All right, so those are my background assets. Now I'm going to start building my character assets because I want to have a bird there. And I want that bird to be able to be moved and changed, and maybe I want to have clouds roll in and maybe a T-Rex come in. But I've got all my background plates figured out. So I'm going to save this now. It's my stage. It's the only stage I want to use. But now I want to start building background assets. So for that, I'm going to open up my character files. I go to my assignments. I'm going to look at assignment 2, where I have, it depends how you want to do it. I'm not going to go to my PSD. I'm going to go to my finished PNG, which is all nicely cut out. Or I can go to my TIFF. Open that with Photoshop. And then immediately, actually, because I already know the size I need, I can actually go to my assignment 3. It depends where you're getting your assets from. But because I'm using my character in my setting, I can actually save some time by going right to my CreatureScape PSD file, because that's at the same resolution. But why is my PSD flattened? It should not be flattened. That creates problems for me. Your PSD should have all those layers that you use to build, to put your character in its place. Yeah, shoot. All right, so I'll have to do it the other way. That's a shame. Just because the PSD accidentally got flattened before it was saved. That's a very amateurish mistake. But they happen. Just teaches me. That's so weird. I never do that. All right. But once it's flattened, it's flattened. It's sad. I need to go back in my time machine and find it. So I'm going to open up a PNG of my character and start building character assets. Now, character assets are if you're wanting to make the character move. Right. And the first thing I want to do is actually figure out how big this character should be within my background. My background sets all of my parameters. So I'm going to use my move tool and move this cutout character into my stage, into my setting, put him on top there. And I see that he's way too big, so then I can transform him smaller. And And then I will start to build my character assets.